Hello, everyone, and welcome to, I guess, a new edition, new season of Affected by Altitude, our Purple Row podcast covering the Colorado Rockies. I am your host today, Skyler Timmons. Back with me once again is our good buddy, Evan Lang. Good to see you, Evan.
How's it going? Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good times. Been a while. It has been a while. And you'll notice here that we don't have our good buddy, Mac Wilcox, here. Mac's stepping away, but we'll get into that in a second here. But we're joined today in his place with our guest who's been with Purple Row since Evan and I have been here. And this is my first time talking to him and vice versa and everything, but always a lot of good insights. We're joined internationally here with our buddy Mario Delgado. Mario, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank God for having me. It's pretty cool. I actually just realized that. Like, that's actually the first time I talked to one of y'all. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And yeah, so, you know, like, y'all can see, the podcast growth and everything, they go international to get guests. So,
yeah. Yeah. If you haven't seen Mario's articles over on Purple Row, he's kind of our sabermetrics, I guess, go-to expert now. He's, especially with pitching, he goes really in depth with pitching, a lot of good handle on all that stuff. So we're happy to have him here. Great contributions over on Purple Row. Always go check him out over on the website and everything. It's good stuff. We appreciate having you here, Mario.
I appreciate y'all.
But we got a lot to talk about today. It's been a while. But first thing, Evan and I, we wanted to kind of give you an update here on the state of the podcast. And it just like, if you recall back several months ago in the fall, Vox Media, SB Nation, Purple Row's budget got cut a little bit, and roles were getting changed around. And unfortunately now another round of kind of cuts and everything has affected the podcast realm of SB Nation and Vox Media. Unfortunately, Affected by Altitude is going to be affected by that altitude. More or less, at the end of February, quote unquote, we're not going to be funded by Vox Media and SB Nation. Unfortunately, that funding's getting cut. It's not much, but just the costs of, the hosting platform, everything else, can't keep it up for, unfortunately, our podcast. But Evan, will this stop us?
Absolutely not. So since we got the announcement that Vox Media was no longer going to be supporting a bunch of podcasts, we've sort of been working to try and figure out what our next step is going to be. And we definitely don't want the show to stop or anything like that. We're committed to keeping this podcast going. So we're going to be looking at additional publishing platforms. We're also going to be giving a shot at uploading the podcast in video format to the Purple Row YouTube channel. There's also going to be some adjustments into how things are hosted. As Skyler alluded to just a couple minutes ago, our buddy Mac Wilcox is stepping away to focus on other projects. We might still see him every now and then, but he's not going to be a regular host. Likely what our new format is going to be going forward is myself or Skyler or both of us, and then a rotation of guest hosts, as it were, coming in every week, every couple of weeks. So that way we're getting fresh perspectives every week. But you're still going to have at least one of us hosting the show regularly. And there's going to be some additional bugs to work out and some things to figure out. But we are definitely committed to keeping this podcast rolling and making sure that we have the show ready to go, especially when spring training and the 2023 MLB season starts.
Yeah, so we'll keep things going as best we can, shake up some things, hopefully get some more people on here, like Evan said, get those elusive guests we've been dreaming for and everything. But for now, we'll just keep on going, keep on rolling. Of course, we'll get Mac back here. You can't keep him out of the ring for long. We'll have a giant wrestling fanfare for him to come out with a chair and just bash me over the head or something.
Yeah.
Which, now that's good television, my friends.
Yeah.
But, so just stay tuned. Keep an eye out. We appreciate all your support, and keep this thing going, because there's nothing better than people coming together to talk about the Rockies. Writing is one thing, but then be able to sit down here and have these discussions with each other, really means a lot. And it makes a difference because it's fun sharing those perspectives and just joking around and stuff. Because if you didn't know, the Rockies are a really weird franchise to cover and talk about.
Yeah,
So
that's
we'll
an
keep those
understatement.
things going.
Yeah, understatement of the century. Rockies, weird.
Yeah. They're like, that's just the tip of the iceberg and everything. But anyway, let's go ahead and just jump into our show. We got a lot to talk about. It has been an off season as we're getting closer and closer to spring training starting, pitchers and catchers reporting. But here at the end of January, we just kind of want to touch base and really cover back on some things. And the first one, the one that's freshest in our minds, is the Hall of Fame voting results were released. Were announced just earlier this week when we're recording. Yeah. Time is a flat circle. Yeesh. But unfortunately, Todd Helton did not get in. It was only Scott Rowland that was elected by the writers to go in along with Braves legend Fred McGriff, the crime dog. So those two will be your class of 2023. But Todd Helton coming very, very close. Guys, here is finishing just about 11 or so votes shy of induction here in the 2023 voting cycle. And I guess I just want to throw it out here. We'll start here with Mario. Your first initial reactions when you heard the voting results?
I wasn't surprised. I expected, like considering, the introduction, the induction of Larry Walker, which I think was a major advancement really for the Rockies as a whole, when it comes to national media and everything. But I thought that basically meant that Helton was eventually going to get in. Now we know the writers are silly. We know they like to make people wait for no reason. So I didn't expect him to make it this year. I was actually very surprised that he got that close, but I was not surprised at all that he ended up not making it. I was actually very happy for Scott Rowland. I thought he wasn't going to make it either. He was going to have to wait another year. And then, he'd have Beltray on the ballot, so he'd have another third baseman to compete with. So, also I'll say, and then I'll keep moving, toss it over to Evan or whatever. But now that he's gotten this close, is basically just about a guarantee that he's going to get it next year. So just for people to keep that in mind. You may be frustrated this year, but it's going to happen because unless something crazy just happens. He's not going to lose votes at this point. He's just going to keep gaining them. So, frustrating, but bodes well for the future.
Yeah, definitely. I know, Evan, I think you're a lot on that sentiment. I think we're all in that sentiment that he's going to get in next year. But we can't help but feel frustrated when we see some of the things that the voting results that were coming out, the Hall of Fame tracker and everything, all the great work those guys do on Twitter. We can see kind of the inching forward, gaining votes. But then we see the blank ballots, the ballots that keep him off, and the arguments of guys that come with that. And Evan, you were pretty fired up. You had a wonderful article about it on Purple Row for your rock pile. Take us through some of those reactions.
I was, and I'll preface, first of all, I think Scott Rowland and Fred McGriff are 100% deserving of their induction.
Yes.
If I were afforded a ballot, Rowland and McGriff would have been on it, 100%. McGriff getting in via the contemporary committee shouldn't have had to be a thing. I think he should have been elected when he was first on the ballot. And Rowland is one of the best third basemen of all time. You can't really argue that. He belongs in the Hall. But it's so frustrating, to me at least, because I'm of the sentiment of, if Todd Helton is good enough to get in next year, why is he not good enough to get in this year, especially when only one person was elected on the ballot and we've been having smaller and smaller ballots? I believe statistically it is so much harder to get into the Hall of Fame in this modern era than it was, say, like prior to 1960. And you have people who leave Helton off of their ballots. You had on the last day of public voting, you had a bunch of writers from the New York Post all have their ballots drop, and a bunch of them left Todd Helton off. You had John Heyman, not of the New York Post, not vote for Helton. And then you had Bob Nightingale of USA Today leave Helton off of his ballot while being like, man, it's weird that Todd Helton get elected. And it's like, you didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
And that was that was especially frustrating after Nightingale in his article defending his ballot was really sort of breathlessly defending his vote for Carlos Beltran, saying that it's unfair to not vote for Beltran because of his involvement in the Houston Astros cheating scandal and the 2017 World Series victory that resulted of it, but then leaves Helton off of his ballot for things like Coors Field. And we still see a lot of voters not vote for Helton, holding against him where he played his home games, despite the fact that Helton was a really incredible hitter on the road as well. He hit very well on the road, to the point where I like to bring up Todd Helton's road OPS is better than is the same as Scott Rowland's career OPS. Yes. And these are two guys who both deserve to get in. You also hold things against him like, oh, he didn't hit enough home runs. But if he hit more home runs, then he'd have that held against him because he played at Coors Field. Mm-hmm. And he gets the fact that he's a first baseman and that he was a really, really good defensive first baseman sort of ignored because he didn't play into the prototypical power hitting first baseman archetype. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really frustrating because you have this guy who, yes, he's gaining steam. Yes, he is very likely to be inducted next year, and he is incredibly deserving, and he just barely fell short this year. But you continue to see these things get held against him, and it's just so frustrating. And I think it has a lot to do with the issues of the current Hall of Fame voting process. But if Todd Helton is good enough this year for 72.2% of the vote, and he's almost definitely going to get in next year, then why wasn't he good enough this year for 75% of the vote, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something that two of the discourses that I kept seeing go around, well, when they justify him with Larry Walker, the thing they always tag on, well, we got to see him play at other places and see how good he was instead of just Coors Field. And so that Coors Field factor, it still takes a big thing. And thank goodness for advanced analytics and metrics and everything that can help show how good Helton was overall as a player. I appreciate Tom Verducci, who sometimes annoys me, but seeing him, I kept trying to differentiate and come to terms with the home road splits. But then I realized the math has already done it with OPS plus. Mm-hmm. And I look at that, and he was really good. And so I voted for him finally. And so, you're seeing some of those, old school baseball writers get a little more indoctrinated with the stats and everything, and seeing them change their votes. And so that's helpful. So, but you can't punish a player because he's played his entire career in Colorado. And that's something we can tag on here a little bit. But one other thing I want to mention is the
Well, looks like we lost Skyler there for just a minute. Hopefully he'll pop back on here shortly. Maybe some connection issues or something like that. Skyler, we lost you for just a minute.
Oh, darn. Internet's unstable. But I was just saying that the sentiment that if you have to debate a Hall of Famer's candidacy that he's not a Hall of Famer is a very short-sighted and very ignorant way of approaching the voting process and approaching baseball, because that's really disrespectful to a lot of guys who are really good. But if you're holding them to this weird high standard like that, because by that reasoning, there shouldn't be any Hall of Famers unless you're 100% of the vote, which there's only been one guy in the history of baseball that's 100%.
Not even the media's beloved Derek Jeter had 100% of the votes.
Not even
Jr. didn't have 100% of the votes.
Yeah, only Mariano Rivera.
I mean, arguably the greatest closer of all time, Mariano Rivera, deserving of 100% of the vote. And another thing is, if we weren't able to debate these kinds of things, a whole bunch of us are out of a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's sort of the whole point of our existence, is that we're here to talk and debate and discuss. And if you go, oh, well, they're not deserving of being in the Hall of Fame because you had to discuss it or debate it, well, then what's the point of us? What's the point of the Baseball Writers Association of America if it doesn't count because they had to discuss it when their whole job as a baseball writer is to discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you got on that, Mario?
I mean, like first of all, here's something I'll say, and I'm going to play devil's advocate just a little bit, just for the sake of the art. Now, here's what I'm say. I think Todd Helton is a Hall of Famer, but I will say that I could buy someone saying that he's not the slam dunk that, say, a Ted Williams is. He's not the slam dunk that a Frank Thomas is. But here's the thing: throughout time, a lot of mad times, the voters have basically used what you would call the injury clause or the projecting clause to put players in the Hall of Fame with resumes that are maybe not Hall of Fame caliber when you look at the accumulated stat. Prime example of that is someone like Kirby Puckett. Tired due to injury, basically something that was out of his control. Didn't amass the numbers that you would typically expect from a Hall of Famer, but writers understood that he was on the path, that his rate stats were great, that he hits for high average, and they put him in anyway. Sandy Koufax, same thing. So when you look at Helton and say, well, he didn't hit enough home runs for first baseman. Yeah, and part of the reason for that was because he started having back issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing: you can tell me, well, availability is the best ability. Sure, but you can also project that, a little bit with that. And then, of course, what you said, Skyler, about OPS plus doing that with him. I have a stat over here from Twitter from, the Helton Hall of Fame account, at TH17HOF. Great account to follow, by the way. Basically, there are 15 players in Major League history with 400 plus batting runs, park adjusted, and 70 plus fielding runs saved. Those players are 12 Hall of Famers: Albert Pujols, who's going to be a first ballot; Barry Bonds, who's the best position player in the history of the game, or one of the 4 best position players in the history of the game; and Todd Helton. And again, the batting runs are adjusted. So you can argue to me that maybe, the total stats were not there. But when you take into account the bat, take into account park adjusting, take into account that by this point we should know better. I mean, come on, man. And it's just silly because, go back and you look at past ballots and you see, like 5% of voters did not vote for like Rickey Henderson. And it's like, how does someone look at the career of Rickey Henderson and say, you know what? That right there is not a Hall of Fame baseball player. Who looks at that? It's like basically just dismiss, the Writers Association, and you just say, right, like we know at this point, and we believe that common sense is going to eventually win out. And, like I said before, I feel like, Walker actually making it in was huge move for Helton because, in my opinion, Walker was a better player, and, he kind of destroys the myth, of course, that you can get in. So, yeah. But it's very, very frustrating, though. It's just real frustrating to see dumb arguments. Like, if you're going to make arguments against Helton, please make them, considering the total counting stats, or maybe, no, he's a first baseman, I guess, and he didn't have like a super overwhelmingly long prime. But don't do the dumb stuff, please. Like, we should know better by this point.
Yeah, because it's like, if you want to say Todd Helton's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, yeah, you're right. I'll admit that 100%. First ballot Hall of Fame is one of those ones that's really reserved for the best of the best of the best. But to say he's not a Hall of Famer at all, and to go in those things, he didn't hit many home runs. But you look at how he is one of the best double hitters of any first baseman ever,
and an OBP god. It's like
he basically traded in being your prototypical home run hitting first baseman for, I'm going to get on base, I'm going to hit a ton of doubles.
Yeah, and the connotation of what's a first ballot Hall of Famer, if that was the case, like we mentioned, there would be very few people in the Hall of Fame. I'm sure there's a ton of those writers that would applaud that, to celebrate just a handful of the many, many wonderful, really good to great players in the history of the game of baseball. And also you got to define generations. The era Todd Helton played in, he's one of the best players of his generation. He's up there, along with a lot of these other players. And so you got to look at the context of what does he look like in his generation to compared to people he played against and played with. What does he look like to them?
Yeah. At the end of the day, you just got to not be silly, man. Just for every writer who's voting, like voting is have a privilege, man. Like, the end of the day, you also have these guys' reputation, on the line in a way. Like at the end of the day, that plaque is going to be right there, and you had a say in that plaque. So take a little bit of responsibility and at least take it seriously
Yeah.
if you vote, and don't be silly. Like this voting is not about you; it's about ball players, and you basically doing a little bit, make the right decisions to make sure that they are regarded as they should be regarded.
Yeah,
Baseball
and
Hall of Fame in general is just way too strict, man. Like this, I don't know where this idea comes from that it's easier than ever to get into it. People saying Roland was in the Hall of Fame is like, what?
well, and we have so many of the voters are really unable to detach their own ego from their voting process. I'm trying to remember the name of who it was. One of the voters, like a 93-year-old former writer who intentionally submitted a blank ballot because he didn't like that younger voters were using all 10 of their spots on their ballots.
That article is pretty funny.
That is hating 101 right there. I can't even be mad at that.
Like that is the kind of thing that we have to deal with when it comes to the Hall of Fame voters. And I'm not saying that, maybe the Baseball Writers Association of America has, no votes or anything like that. But at some point, I would love to see how the Hall of Fame is voted for reevaluated, because I think you should also be polling former players, current players, coaches,
Yes.
all sorts of different people. I think it should be casting a wider net and a wider range of opinions. Like, all right, well, let's talk to Mike Trout. Who does Mike Trout think is the greatest right fielder of all time? I'd like to hear that, because he's got a unique perspective. Or this manager has a unique perspective. Everyone has different perspectives, and if we're going to let your ego and things like that be part of the voting process, then I think you need to widen that voting process to include even more people and a more varied assortment of personalities and individual accounts of things.
Just do it like a regular election and have Hall of Famers get up and debate each other. Or at least have them get up, have a representative that's debating in favor of Todd Helton or something like that.
Well, it's like, because I bet if you asked someone from Todd Helton's era that played against him, he'd probably go, yeah, Todd Helton was one of the best first basemen I ever played against.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the pitchers.
Yeah.
That's the pitchers, though.
Ask
Saito.
Ask Trevor Hoffman.
Yes.
Yeah. Ask Saito.
Yeah. Just in general, media has, sorry to cut you off, media has such a wide impact on who actually gets in. Like, you think about it, why would as great a career as he had, why is David Ortiz in the Hall of Fame first ballot? Why?
Because he was a media darling.
Exactly.
And that's also a big reason. It's not just the steroids with Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds and baseball media very infamously did not get along. And I think that's another thing. It's like, oh, the writers have this experience with Barry of they didn't really get along. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. And you look at same thing with Jeff Kent, one of the best hitting offensive second baseman in the history of the game, falls off on his 10th ballot, doesn't even reach about 50% or so. One, because he didn't get along with the media as well as a lot of guys.
And also, just the timing of everything, I think has also, a lot to do with it. For Helton, this actually kind of plays a part, yeah, because Helton actually spent, a couple, of the last years of his career, having tons of back issues, not really hitting for power. He didn't really retire at his peak. There are other cases like that. You look at someone like a Johan Santana, was the best pitcher in the world, and say for like a 5-year span, but then was injured a lot. So basically, didn't really contribute. So between his, the end of his prime and the actual time of retirement and the time he actually, got on the ballot, there was a huge span and people kind of forgot. So I think, It's a shame, really, because I bet, like, here's the thing. I bet had Helton retired after, I say, '09, because, he had debilitating back issues, has to get, career-ending surgery, and he's gone just like that. I feel like he actually might have had a better shot, at getting a high percentage earlier, because, his greatness would have been considered kind of like being ripped away from him, not really him losing it over time. So, yeah, it's just, there's too many biases at the end of the day. Like, you can, look at the numbers, you can ask people, and you'll figure out who needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And again, that's why they are able to debate, why they're able to be on the thing for 10 years. For 10 years, there's always conversations to be had. Opinions can change. You can't just judge a guy on his very first ballot and say, yeah, he's not a Hall of Famer. But we see Helton making those big gains. And like we've talked about, almost guaranteed he's going to be in next year, which that's exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, it would have been really nice for him to get in this year because it coincides with the 30th anniversary of the team. And, even more than Larry Walker, Todd Helton is Mr. Rocky, the guy who played his entire career with the franchise. So that would have been a very cool way to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the organization. But the fact that he has made tremendous gains, like he went from like 29% to 50% to 72%.
Yeah.
Those are really, really good. And yeah, some of it has to do with a lot of big names dropped off the ballot last year, but he still got to 50% with over 50% with a lot of those big names on the ballot. So we at the very least have that to look forward to next year. Of Todd Helton will be a Hall of Famer. It's only a matter of when.
Which is a good time to go. But in the meantime, you can always follow Ryan Spielbergs on Twitter as well, who will continue to go scorched earth on people defending his former teammate and the Rockies in general. Against that.
Some of the maddest I have ever seen Spilly get.
Yeah, pretty good, but good arguments. If you look into the stats and everything, there's good arguments to be had. And we'll accept that. If people don't want to vote for him, at least give us a good reason more than Coors, because there's a lot more conversations to be had there as well. But more or less, Todd Helton Hall of Fame 2024 in Cooperstown is what we're hoping for.
The year of the Todd father.
Indeed. And what more Rockies thing for him to be overshadowed by Adrian Beltre, whoever else gets voted in. It's the most Rockies thing that could happen. But
it's like Walker. Walker got overshadowed by Jeter. So it's probably going to be the tradition at this point.
What was that, Mario?
I think he might have preferred it. Just listen to his Hall of Fame speech and everything. I think he might have actually preferred kind of being, like I remember he mentioned like being the B side, Jeter's A side. I think he said that exact thing. So I think he might have preferred it. But Helton's definitely going to be the quote unquote B side to Beltre. I think Beltre might actually get in next year too. They're going to make him, do like the 1 year sentence for cheating, and then they're going to put him in the ballot, which is totally fine.
Yeah, I mean Beltran got almost 50% on his first year. Like he's another one of those guys where it's only a matter of time.
So I just would have loved to see how would have Major League Baseball reacted if it had been Todd Helton instead of Scott Rowland. They would have been so confused. I don't think the world could have handled that. So you got to pair him with a superstar that people are more knowledgeable about. But anyways, Hall of Fame still flawed, but man, still what a great institution, and still continues to need improvement. But that's the fun part every offseason, watching the Hall of Fame stuff. So we'll stay tuned. Hopefully we're here still going next year or some form of this. Do a live podcast from the induction ceremony.
That would be so cool. It'll be the coolest thing I ever did.
We'll send you up with a microphone to get an interview with Todd Helton while he's giving his speech. And you can get tackled by security.
Okay, I don't like where this is going now.
That's going to make the news.
Yeah. Hey, that's some good publicity there, Evan. It's
certainly publicity. I don't know about good.
All publicity is good publicity. But we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to keep talking Rockies offseason, and they've been busy doing some stuff. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back here on Affected by Altitude, the Purple Row podcast. It's been a while. I'm at a sink here, Evan. But
it's been a couple months. We're a little rusty.
It's been a while.
We haven't had spring training yet.
Yeah, this is still our spring training, our little mini camp. But we'll just keep rolling on right along here things. I'll give you guys a choice here. Should we jump into Rockies offseason or our little detour into some owner comments that came from the weekend?
Go ahead.
Oh, boy. So let's at least briefly discuss what Rockies owner Dick Monfort spoke of this weekend, because unfortunately it really did not shine a good light on the Rockies organization either way. Where, what is it called? The Champions Breakfast or whatever it's called in Greeley.
Yeah, it's like the Friends of Baseball Breakfast of Champions event in Greeley, Colorado. Which, if you don't know, that's Dick Monfort's hometown.
Where Dick Monfort very boldly proclaimed that he could see the Rockies having a 500 record, which a lot of people got up in arms about. On one hand, I appreciate that it's a little more realistic than him interpolating a 94 win season.
Oh, that was bad. Oh.
On the other hand, it probably would have been better had he just not said anything. And you can say that for a couple of his other comments this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can find this as not Purple Row. Denver Post, Patrick Saunders had a good article about it. But everything started to hit the fan when our buddy Patrick Lyons over at DNVR posted the quote of Dick Monfort saying, "I think we can play 500 baseball this year." And you can get a little bit more context about that from Patrick Saunders. More or less where Dick feels that they're a little bit more competitive. They'll be a little bit more competitive this year. And he could see them playing around 500 baseball, which, if anything, I would have said I feel like we can play at least 500 baseball just so he can be his optimistic self. But the wording just seemed kind of off, and Twitter had a field day about it. It's not a good look when you come out and say, "Yeah, we think we could play 500 baseball."
Especially with the 30th anniversary of the team coming up. It's like,
boy, ain't that a good summary for what the franchise has mostly been, huh?
Exactly. You know,
but then it just kept getting worse the more quotes we got from him.
mm-hmm.
It was on the Score and reported in other places about him complaining about how the Padres are spending too much money and it's unfair because it puts pressure on him to spend money, but also that he thinks that the Padres aren't necessarily a more complete or better baseball team than the Rockies, even though they've spent all that money. Which is not a good look to, one, acknowledge that the fans want you to be spending more, and then to wheel around and complain about teams like the Padres and the Mets spending too much money this offseason. And that made people even more frustrated. And then the one that I saw this morning was him going, "Well, really, we had 4 prospects in the top 100, but we could have had at least 15.
Is. Go ahead.
Well, I say, that's the one thing. Dick Monfort always does have a lot of confidence in what he's got. However misplaced that may be sometimes. To his credit, the farm system's much better. Now, having 15 in the top 100, I don't think about that, but
that's ludicrous.
Yeah, that's ludicrous. But I think the thing that, they have a lot better prospects than they have in a while.
And I think top 4 in the top 100 is good. That's really good, especially from how our farm system has been. But it also plays into the Rockies' very bad habit of way overvaluing their prospects. I don't think any team ever has had 15 in the top 100.
I don't think any team is at 10.
I think the most I've seen is like 6 or 7. But it's one of those things where for the 500 record part, it was one of those you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Because if he had said, oh, we're going to have a winning season, he would have gotten crucified. And if he had said, we're going to have a losing season, he would have gotten crucified. So we shot for the middle and said, I think we can play 500 ball. But after a bunch of consecutive losing seasons, that's really also not what fans want to hear. And for all of this, it would have been, maybe you should have just said nothing.
Yeah.
At this random breakfast of all things.
Wasn't that where he said that we were going to win 94 the other year too?
Probably.
I think it was also this champions breakfast. Who keeps letting him talk at these?
Yeah. And I was just going to say, the Baltimore Orioles looks like they have about 8 in the top 100 right now, like about 7 or 8. And so you compare that to the Rockies with their 4 and how they got those 4. It's not necessarily like the Orioles who had been tanking and all this awful stuff. So just kind of lucking their way into 4 prospects in the top 100, still pretty good. But yeah, like Richard, my man, you got to find a better time or a different way to phrase things because his sentiments, like, yeah, it's not necessarily throwing all the money at things like the Padres have, who have kind of depleted their farm system a little bit to acquire guys and setting themselves up to like try and pay Juan Soto. But you got to be able to spend money to make a good roster as well. And that's the route the Padres are taking, is spending money to make their roster as good as it can be. The Mets, the Phillies are doing that. And then you look at the Rockies, you can't really compare yourself to them because, is it the thing where he tried to compare the starting rotations or whatever?
Oh, my God.
They have 3 or 4 good starting pitchers in the rotation, and so do we.
And he's like, and then they're kind of like us. I'm like, what does that mean?
It's like, I love our rotation. I love Armand and Kyle Freeland and our guys, but I don't know what he was trying to say with that.
Yo, listen. He said, yeah, they have Darvish, they have Snell, they have Musgrove, but after those 3 frontline guys, our rotations are the same. Does he not realize that he's basically saying that R1 would be their 4? Like, does he not realize that he's saying that?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I laughed so hard when I saw that. I was like, oh my. Like, why is he talking, dog? Why is he talking?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, Mr.
Oh
Monfort. Like, I think that's what we always talk about is like, we're sure he's like a really nice guy. He probably means well, but with the way the Rockies have been run continually and this kind of stuff just turns us more into that laughing stock. And we talked about this in our Slack channel. And Mario, you brought this up that we're kind of the new Lowell Mets type of thing. And like, I would love to be the Lowell Mets because they try and they have these really good players and then they just kind of choke. And that's the Lowell Mets kind of joke. But the Rockies, it's just, what are they doing?
And it's frustrating because we've said it on the show before, and we've all talked about this before. There is no doubt that Dick Monfort loves his baseball team, and he considers himself however misplaced, considers himself a baseball guy. But every time he opens his mouth for these kinds of conversations, all he's doing is giving the national baseball media and the other fan bases and other fans ammunition to dunk on the Rockies and for Rockies fans to feel embarrassed about their organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the frustrating part is. It's like, I understand that you got to make some comments, but maybe think about how you're going to respond to these questions and think about how what you're saying reflects not only poorly on the organization and on the fans, but on you. Like, it reflects extremely poorly on Dick Monfort as an owner when he says these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Especially doesn't help fuel the fire, no, when he's calling out another team for spending money and saying, I don't 100% agree with that. Because then that's kind of like part of the problem. No, what was the lockout about last year, and who was in charge on the MLB end with that lockout? Really, no, that doesn't help. It's not helping the game when you're calling out another team saying, I don't agree with you spending money like that. Like, keep that to yourself. You can disagree with that. That's fine. No, you can approach it differently. But go ahead, Mario.
And no, because like after that, he said another thing. He said, I don't agree with the way the Padres are spending money, but I know our fans would like us to spend money like that.
Yeah.
So he's acknowledging. He's like, why are you talking, bro? Like, stop. Why are you acknowledging this? Just like, that's basically like spinning. Like, that's like spin on. That's like spin in our face, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I know you want us to spend more money, but we're not going to do that because I don't actually agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It plays into the whole, like, the Rockies are cheap, which they're not. Like, for the most part, their payrolls are average or even above average for the most part. Like, I wouldn't call them a cheap team. They just don't spend the money well. But when you put out a quote like that, it just gives more ammo. Just don't talk, man, or at least like write down something that puts a positive spin on it. Like, say, okay, so we know that we're behind some of the powerhouses in our division, but we believe in our farm system. We believe in our development team. We feel like if we do things right, we can be a good, solid team and set us up for the future, 2024 onwards, to really contend and build a strong foundation. Basically, if you say that, you're basically acknowledging, yes, we're not going to be competing, but there is a larger plan here that's being built, because that's I feel like as a Rockies fan, one of the most frustrating things about it is that a lot of times you just feel like they don't have a plan. Like, why in the world is Randall Grichuk getting 500 plate appearances for a 64-win team? Like it just does not make any sense. Like, that's just not how you distribute resources. Which is why we can talk about that when we talk about the offseason. But they need to clear some plate appearances, man. But yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, like, I think with the breakfast champion stuff and these comments and quotes that come out of Dick Monfort, it's kind of like off the cusp type of stuff. Or like, I think if it was a regular like media press conference, which the Rockies really don't have anymore, he would have like the more of those prepared, planned statements. But when I think it's off the cusp, you kind of get unfortunately, a better idea of like where he stands with how he sees the game and operating things. And so that's tough because it's kind of the same stuff. We'll hear the canned statements from Bill Schmidt. It doesn't really, the organization doesn't like they hold their cards close to their chest. They don't like to reveal much, and they don't have these press conferences anymore. But it's just tough because we want, like you're saying, Mario, we want to see those plans. We want to kind of know where we're headed, where we stand as an organization. If they would just come out and tell us tomorrow, hey, this is our plan. We're planning on these prospects. We're going to let them play and see what we've got and reassess from there. I think we'd all be pretty happy with that. Like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Because it worked out for the Mariners and everything. So, what do you think, Evan? Last thoughts here.
Well, I mean, it's funny because even in like a pre-prepared press conference, he usually will say something that is just complete foot in mouth. Like the one of the last press conferences this team ever really did was the one following the Nolan Arenado trade, where he said a lot of things that came across as very odd and very foolish, like the whole, I think about firing myself, or the, I lost so much sleep over this, and
I don't know why he would want to leave.
And just putting his foot in his mouth, even in that press conference setting. So even if, and that's the reason why the Rockies don't really do any press conferences anymore.
Yeah, they're terrible at it.
So this is a guy who needs a PR guy with him when he does these public appearances, just whisper in his ear. It's like, you should say something like this, because he's not doing himself any favors, and by extension, he's not doing the organization or the fans any favors.
Just hire a really good impersonator that can just be the public face of Dick Monfort. So get an actor or something very charismatic, and just make him look like Dick Monfort. Boom, just get a doppelganger, throw him out there.
Some prosthetics or something.
Yeah.
the life body decoy of Dick Monfort.
Yeah, that could work. But it's been weird stuff. But such is life of a Rockies fan. But kind of going along with this, we take those comments that he's talking about and those things we're talking about with having a plan. It feels like a little bit this offseason, we have seen some of that plan coming into effect, or coming to the surface, where they kept saying we don't want to block our guys. That's kind of been the thing. We want to open up space for our prospects that are coming up. We want to have them an avenue to play. And so they at least have mentioned that. Some things they've done haven't really been a testament to that. And other things, it seems to have been the case this offseason, is pitching, bolstering the pitching depth any way they can through a lot of minor league signings, through trading for it, and a couple of acquisitions off of waivers and everything else. And so I'll run it down here real quick. Of free agent signings, there's just been 2. Jose Urena re-ups with the team, and they bring in Denver native Pierce Johnson for the bullpen. They also claimed Brent Suter off of waivers from the Brewers. And so those are kind of your 3 major league pitching acquisitions. Pitching-wise, there's been a ton of other minor league signings. They trade away Sam Hilliard, Connor Joe, Chad Smith. They bring in some pitching that way, pull guys off waivers, bring in Fernando Abad from old man land to try to be Alex Colomé age or Daniel Bard again. And then position-wise, I guess the big one was bringing in Nolan Jones from Cleveland, trading Juan Brito over there. So there's been a lot of moves, but let's kind of open it. What stuck out to you this offseason? Maybe a move that sticks out to you the most, or just a vibe you've gotten from the Rockies offseason thus far?
For me, what it is it really is that pitching depth. The Rockies have either brought in or brought back a total of 16 pitchers across the major and minor league levels over this offseason so far. And, they've made trades to try and cement both major and minor league pitching depth. The big ones to stand out to me are the Connor Joe and Sam Hilliard trades, where they made the tough decision to part with these guys that are really well liked in order to acquire solid minor league pitching depth, which is something that we've needed. So at the very least, the Rockies are addressing team needs. They're addressing areas of concern, especially when it comes to pitching depth. Is there more that they could have done? Absolutely. But as I put it, it's like quietly, the Rockies have been very, very busy this offseason.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Mario? Because you've been following the pitching a lot.
Oh, yeah. I'm basically, focused strictly on pitching, right? But I'd say, sticking on brand, the move that really stuck out to me was claiming Nick Mears off waivers. And the reason that stuck out to me a lot is because we know the Rockies, they've been trying to figure out how do you pitch at altitude, how do you pitch to Coors Field, and for years they've done a better job at it sometimes, a worse job at it sometimes. We all know they love their sinker ballers. I mean, if you look at the pitching staff right now, it's filled with sinkers. It's just crazy. So one of the reasons the Nick Mears claims stuck out to me so much is because Nick Mears is the exact opposite of that profile. Like we've been talking also a lot about over the years, they need to strike out more guys, because at the end of the day, what Coors Field truly boosts is a ball in play. So why are you, putting a staff together with soft tossers who are going to allow a lot of contact? Well, yes, you might get a lot of ground balls, but you're also giving up a lot of line drives, and you're basically just going to get, torn to shreds. So they need to miss more bats. Now, of course, there's a dynamic with that, because the pitching style that leads to more bat missing tends to be more up down, north south type of attack, power pitching, power forcing, power breaking ball. And that just so happens to be a style of pitching that also tends to lead to more fly balls, which are not great for altitude. So, there's and obviously course field reduces pitch movement, lessens your ability to miss bats just in a vacuum. But the Nick Mears claim, stuck with me a lot, mainly because he just is the complete opposite of the profile they typically favor. Nick Mears is an entirely vertically oriented pitcher. He has an excellent power four seam, gets down the mound very well, spins it. He gets kind of that cut carry action on it. And basically, this is a fastball that has to be thrown at the top of the zone to have success. And it profiles as a very good fastball. He has, you can really spin a breaking ball. I wrote about how you can make some adjustments to it. But, just the fact that they made a move like that, that kind of tells me that there's probably behind the scenes, there's some level of change in philosophy. At least I want to see that there's some level of change in philosophy where they say, okay, ground balls are great, but we need to start missing some bats here. And if we allow a few home runs, that's okay, because we're going to strike out enough guys and we're going to keep the walks down enough to where they're not going to hurt us. Because, obviously, contrary to popular belief, what kills you at Coors Field is not the home run. It's the double that turns into a triple, the single that turns into a double, it's so if you can miss as many bats as possible, that's better. And, picking up Nick Mears, I thought was a move that could signify potentially something. I really hope he sticks on the roster and they give him a shot, because I think he can be a backhand type with a couple of adjustments.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So you wrote a really great article on Nick Mears as well. Article was titled "On Nick Mears and the Value of Potential," which went up on January 10th. But I really agree with you where you're coming from, where a couple of the guys that they've brought in are guys that don't really fit the mold of your stereotypical Rockies pitcher. So the pitcher that they traded Connor Joe for, Nick Garcia, who will be likely starting the season with AA Hartford, he's got a big power slider and that he uses for missing bats and generating strikeouts. Connor Siebold's got that changeup. These are guys who have specific pitches that are meant for missing bats, for generating whiffs. And that's something we've also heard about pitching coach Darryl Scott, is that he's really been trying to push the organization into more strikeout style pitching, because for so long we've had that very specific Coors Field cookie cutter mold of sinkers and the like to try and generate ground ball contact. And
Yes.
No pitching staff, no matter where you play, is going to thrive when everybody's the same. And so that's something that I do genuinely think they've done a really good job at this year, of no huge flashy signings, yes, but they've done a good job in getting a variety of different pitchers with different skill sets that don't necessarily fit into that mold.
Mm-hmm. And that's something we've talked about a lot, in our personal Slack channels and stuff, of diversifying just the pitching staff. It's like you're saying, when it's a cookie cutter mold, how hard is it for an opposing team to adjust pitcher to pitcher? It's not very difficult.
God, thank you.
If every guy's throwing a sinker, same speed, roughly same contact area, it's just copy and paste. Oh, well, so-and-so does this. Well, so does this guy. I don't have to adjust that much. But when it's coming in, you make pitchers start making hitters uncomfortable. When it's uncomfortable knowing, oh, here's this guy coming in now, what's he got? Instead of, oh, he's probably got this sinker, this slider, looking for those pitches. And so I think that diversity, is really helping them. And you can substitute some of these, or place some of these guys different levels. Some are going to be around the AA area, some are ready AAA, and some are ready to hit the big time, hit the big leagues. It's nice to see that different cast. And something that stuck out to me is with a lot of those veteran minor league signings, they've just gathered guys of varying experiences at the big league level. Now you've got Fernando Abad, minor league deal, non-roster invitee. He's been around for a while. But then there's other guys that, he's had a couple of years in the league, hasn't had much success. Let's plug him in AAA, and just building their big league depth of, if somebody goes down, somebody's really struggling, they have guys with at least some big league experience they can plug in, instead of having to try and rush, some of their younger pitchers up, like they did with Ryan Feltner jumping up straight from AA. they didn't have much guys in AAA to call up. So kind of placing some guys like that, I think will be really helpful. Building that depth, at least. They may not be great, but at least there's some depth there.
Yeah. And 7 of the 11 minor league pitchers that the Rockies have acquired have big league experience. So you've got familiar faces in Ty Block, who I'm happy to have back, and Matt Carasidi, who was with the organization a couple of years ago. And then you've got right-handers TJ Zoich, Phillips Valdez, Matt Koch, and then you've also got lefties Fernando Abed and Josh Rogers. All of these guys have some variety of major league experience for variance of success. They've all got fairly different pitching profiles too. Mm-hmm. It's a good variety to bring in of guys on, low risk, high reward minor league deals. I always like to say there's no such thing as a bad minor league contract. Correct. And this is something the Rockies have legitimately done a good job on this offseason.
Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that we can kind of transition to now is a lot of the moves they've made, no, they're good. No, just kind of filling depth types of moves. And unfortunately, they're kind of the moves you'd expect a team that's already really solid at the big league level, has everything figured out really, and they're just building the supporting cast by trimming the fat. No, but there's still moves that needed to be made, and it just fortunately haven't worked out. Like we mentioned, maybe moving a Randall Grichuk, moving a CJ Crone, because they want to have younger guys play, but there's still positions blocked because of the veterans. And so it's kind of this weird thing where it's good moves, but then on the back burner of the bigger picture, it just doesn't fit with what you would hope would happen with the big league team. It's kind of this weird mix, if that makes sense.
It's like it's like
going halfway.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's halfway between a somewhat of a stealth rebuild and somewhat of a team supplementation. And I do want to address CJ Crone really quick, because I do agree that CJ Crone probably needed to have been dealt. But what we're unfortunately dealing with is last season when CJ Crone was an all-star, it was another one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations where you trade him at the deadline and the fans are upset because, of course, the Rockies traded away one of their best players. But if you didn't trade him, which is where we're at now, we're kind of stuck where we have the hindsight of we should have traded him, because CJ Crone's value was never going to get any higher than it was at the All-Star break last year. Mm-hmm. And he unfortunately did not have a great second half where he struggled. And this season, we probably wouldn't have been able to get a lot of value in a trade for him. So we're kind of stuck right now with that. And it is frustrating to see. And I love CJ Crone. I really do. But he's one of those guys that are blocking, where who should be starting every day at first base? Well, probably Michael Toglia, but CJ Crone is still here, so it's probably going to be him. Who should be starting every day in right field? Honestly, if you ask me, it's Sean Bouchard, but Randall Grichuk is still here.
Yeah, so it's kind of packed up. And then you add in Nolan Jones, who's there as well, who I like the acquisition of Nolan Jones. But then that question remains of, well, he's played mostly right field in the little bit he played with the Cleveland Guardians last year, but he can play both corner positions. Those are kind of locked up. The outfield's a little bit jammed still while they're waiting for Zach Veen to show up. So constant story of giving themselves a blocking problem, as usual.
Who they trade for? A corner outfield, corner infield guy. Oh, and both corner outfield and corner infield spots are so backed up, not only with big league players, but with prospects as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Nolan Jones thing, I think, honestly, they should just move into right field full time. I mean, I know he was moved to the outfield because he was blocked by Jose Ramirez at third base in Cleveland. Obviously, he was never going to play there. But I really think he can really thrive at right field. Dude has an absolute cannon for an arm. Like if
Mhm.
you go watch him throw, he has an absolute rocket launcher. Like it's elite arm strength, and he's a pretty good athlete. He's a big, strong dude. He can move well. He can throw well. I think as he gains more and more experience, I think he can do a fine job in right field. And the acquisition of Nolan Jones kind of it was also a little bit surprising to me because we know the Rockies like aggressive hitters. If you go through their farm system, you won't find many guys who draw a lot of walks, take a lot of pitches, etc. Nolan Jones had posted elite walk rates throughout his entire minor league career, and he has legitimate raw power. He's a lefty, which is a good thing, and just in general, he's the kind of he has the kind of approach at the plate that no one except I would say Sean Bouchard and Chris Bryant have in the major league roster right now. So I think he should get. I'm just going to say it straight. I think he should get total preference. When you look at the group of guys, Michael Toglia, Elois Montero. Let's not forget about him because I like him more than Toglia if I'm just evaluating them. Nolan Jones, Sean Bouchard. I think Jones should get preference. I think he has the best athletic talent. He has the best prospect pedigree. He has the most versatility, really. He can play third, play first. He can play both corners. And he's a lefty. So I think he should get, priority. I mean, just really, it's basically what you guys said. Like, they've done all these things, on the pitching side, they've cleared spots, they're adding depth. But then on the position player side, it's like, you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like, okay, so you're doing this, or you're going to trade CJ Cron, right? You're going to trade Randall Grichuk, right? You're going to tell Chuck, listen, man, like we love you, you're a legend, but we can't have you taking 600 play appearances this season because we need to evaluate guys. I think the problem here is going to be that they have such a high regard for Cron and Grichuk because of who they have been, that they're not going to accept the fact that you're not going to get a whole lot from them. And since they're not going to accept it, it makes it very unlikely that they get moved. Since they're probably not going to get moved, it means guys are not going to get opportunities. And you just keep on riding the hamster wheel. At some point, something's got to happen. Something's got to happen. This whole offseason has been like, okay, that's good, but are you going to clear the plate appearances? And that's kind of where I'm at this point.
Yeah, and I agree with that definitely. Where it seemed like the modus operandum was, let's address pitching. Okay, what about hitting? We're fine. No, and it's understandable. No, other teams, it takes two to tango. Other teams may not be really that interested in Connor, or they were interested in Connor Joe, in CJ Cron or Randall Grichuk, and so that's understandable if no teams. But no, it gets them in that precarious spot. But last thing I want to touch on here, right before we run out of time, also announce one of our last episodes. We talked about Dave Magadan, leaving the hitting coach job. Well, the Rockies replaced him not too long after with Hensley Bam Bam Mullins, and as the hitting coach, and Warren Schaefer was called up as the third base coach to replace Stu Cole at third base. Who knows what will change with a new hitting coach, but hopefully the name of the game is at least, like we're talking about, at least hit the ball in the air. We can't be back-to-back ground ball champs as an organization. So that's the one thing I'll be looking towards is, what does Bam Bam bring to the table to help the team? Maybe get some more pop, increase walks, make more contact, and stop hitting the ball into the dang ground.
Yeah, and pull the ball, please.
Yeah, especially with no shift.
Someone tell Brendan Rodgers, for the love of God, pull a fly ball. I know he's trying, but there's just so much potential for that guy in particular. If he can pull a fly ball, it's like
we watched how good he was last year. It's like, man, imagine how good he could have been if he could pull the ball and he wasn't consistently hitting it right into the dirt.
Yeah. Oh, that's you can say that for a ton of the guys, and hopefully without the shift, maybe we'll get a little bit more pull power from guys, which I would love to see that.
Definitely.
Also, the Rockies are winners. We signed Vanessa Hudgens to a minor league deal via Cole Tucker. So, High School Musical coming.
Tells me he's actually going to make the team. By the way, I didn't want to cut you off, but
I don't see
he's
it.
going to make the team. I mean, he can play every single position. You know how Buddy loves guys who can play everywhere.
But think about, we have Harold Castro and Alan Trejo for that now as well.
Yeah,
that's true.
So that's the utility infielder bench spot is going to be the one to watch this spring. Since Garrett Hampson is no longer with the team, we did non-tender him. He's over in Miami now. Spots open for a new hamster on the wheel, so to speak. We're looking for a new pet rodent.
Oh, I'm going to miss him.
So, but I think we're all kind of in agreement. Good off season. There's still a little bit more they could have done. Now, there's still time for them. No, I doubt they will do much of anything, but who knows? Maybe we'll get a surprise Raimel Tapia for Randall Grichuk type trade.
Yeah, think about how late in the offseason and into spring training that one happened. Like, we've got time to see if anything else happens. So all we can really do is wait and see.
But overall, could have been worse. But still, fun stuff, and it's good to see them trying to do some stuff to address some needs.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to do it here for this new edition of Affected by Altitude. We appreciate you tuning in. And Mario, again, we can't express how happy we are to have you on here with us. Have that conversation with you really for the first time. A natural. But
thank you.
Mario, where can the people find you on the social medias and whatnot?
You can find me and on Twitter. I'm on there the whole time. At DeGenz, that's basically at DEGENCGC. I know there's no. You can type that in there. You probably find me doing some Purple Row stuff, making fun of people. I tweet basically only about baseball, music, and making joking people. So, yeah.
Good stuff. And you can always find him. He'll throw up stuff on Purple Row too. A lot of those pitching articles really go in depth on stats. Really helpful, and he's good with that stuff. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Evan_Lang27. As always, I love to hear from you all. That's where most of my scorching hot takes go. You can also find all of my work on Purple Row, doing the Thursday Rock Pile. And you can also hit us up on the official Affected by Altitude Twitter account, which is at Altitude Effect. And Skyler, where can we find you?
You can find me on the Twitters at sideline_crowd, and also do my Wednesday rock piles over on Purple Row. And good stuff. But that's going to do it here. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. A lot of fun. Happy to be back in the saddle again. And we'll keep churning these out. Again, always follow us. Follow the folks over at Purple Row. Help us with the support on articles and everything. Every view goes a long way. But until next time, we'll see you here on Affected by Altitude.
Skyler, hit him with it.
Farewell.
See you, everybody.
Hasta luego.